Hello, everyone. My name is Atal Osama, and I am so excited to welcome you to the inaugural episode of the Fourth Branch podcast. I launched this podcast because I strongly believe that the free exchange of ideas is what makes us who we are. I also believe that that very concept, the free exchange of ideas, is under terrible assault. On our episodes, you're going to hear a wide range of topics and issues. We'll be welcoming voices, ideas, thoughts, and opinions from across the spectrum. And if you're wondering what my expertise is or what my agenda might be, let me save you some research. I have no agenda or platform, and I am certainly no expert. In fact, this show will not feature the usual talking heads that you may be used to. There are plenty of other outlets if that's what you're looking for. Instead, you're going to be hearing from regular, everyday people, just like you and me. I'm privileged to be working with someone that I've known for over 30 years. Brian Henderson and I have no goal other than we want to provoke and invite discourse. And if you're like us, and you're tired of getting beat over the head with structured, partisan talking points on an endless loop, I hope you can find a home here. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing censorship. And we want to try to unpack what is it about censorship that some find appealing, while others strongly oppose. As much as Brian and I enjoy sharing our conversations with you, we'd much rather have you be a part of them. If you have a topic you're passionate about and you'd like to be a guest on the show, we'd love to have you on anytime. Again, welcome to the Fourth Branch podcast. Real topics, real people. Welcome to the conversation. All right, hello. Welcome to the Fourth Branch podcast. My name is Atal Osama. I am here with my good friend.
I'm Brian Henderson.
And we are just here to have a discussion about everyday topics. I want to talk to everyday people. Looking forward to having future conversations with you. So, Brian, we talked earlier, man, and censorship. What are your thoughts on the idea of preventing certain thoughts, speeches, gestures, comments from entering into public discourse at all? I saw a very interesting discussion about this on one of my YouTube rabbit holes, and I thought it might be something interesting for us to discuss. So what are your initial thoughts about that idea?
I think that of course is a huge topic of the day. And it has its roots, the need for open communication between human beings is, known for thousands of years. I mean, communication is what changes relationships between people. On a national note, I think it was written into the quote unquote foundation of the country for a very good reason, that we should have freedom of speech. And yeah, that does include people that are saying things that we don't agree with.
Yeah. So to play devil's advocate, the debate that it was the I don't want to butcher the name. I believe it was the National Constitution Center, I believe is the name of the organization. I apologize if I don't have that right. And this debate was done in about 2017. And to play devil's advocate to your point, free speech, absent societal equality, is not free speech. So the argument that was being made was, if there is a significant disparity among social standing, and you are a member of the disparaged group or disparaged class, then speech harms you in ways that it will not harm the majority group. This was basically the argument that the one side was trying to make. And because that is the case, And because we have the 14th Amendment, we have a responsibility to foster and support that equality in our society by disallowing the majority group from using language as a weapon to continue to marginalize the disenfranchised group. So that was the basic argument that he was trying to make, and I found that compelling. Ultimately, I don't agree with him, but I did find that compelling. What does that sway you at all? Do you think that there's merit to that viewpoint?
I think there's definitely some merit to that, and it ties into what I remember as, it was quoted as corporations, the vote that gave corporations the status of people, so that of being a person, so that they could exercise their quote unquote free speech with their money and whatever else they wanted to back.
What was that court case? Freedom United? I want to say it was Freedom United.
Yeah. I don't remember the name of it. I remember thinking I understood the impact, and in so saying, I think that impact is right along the argument that you just spoke about, in that if I have free speech as myself, one person, and a multinational corporation has free speech as a person, and it wants its viewpoint to be heard by millions, its viewpoint will be heard by millions, where I don't have that ability. I don't have the money to make that happen. So it is a factor that cannot be ignored when you think of the fundamentals of how public opinion is shaped. Many people watch commercials, the news, and look at TikTok, and to go the opposite way. But even if the multinational, they can get into TikTok, they can get into social media. So it plays a part for sure in how that should be governed, or I shouldn't say governed, how you have to just take a look at it. The whole idea of censorship. Because if you can also get your idea out there to millions, you can also get those millions believing what you say and stopping them and you can stop them from being able to hear what others have to say, which gets back more to the censorship aspect of it.
Yeah, the other side of the argument in that debate was that the solution to bad speech is not censorship. The solution to bad speech is better speech. And if you disagree with a viewpoint that is being made, the last thing that you want is to have your ability to speak taken away. And while the gentleman that was arguing for, and to be clear, the censorship that he was arguing for was very specific. He was arguing for a kind of censorship against a specific kind of speech that is designed to malign a vulnerable group, and it's a noble concept. I understand what it is that he is trying to do, and one of the examples that he gave, that if you take two white males and you say to the first one, we don't think heterosexual white males should be school teachers. Societally, that is not likely to have much impact. But if you say we don't think homosexual white males should be school teachers, because there is an existing stigma against white males, the statement now has the potential to have real life damaging effects to this white male simply because he happens to be a homosexual. And his argument was that because he is assigned membership to a class and societally the class is maligned, speech has the potential to harm him in ways that it would not harm others. But I agree with the other person. The solution to that is better speech. It's not to disallow someone to express an opinion, even if the opinion is wrong or bigoted, or even if it's malicious. I just don't like the idea of not allowing people to talk.
I definitely like the better speech part approach, meaning it's kind of the old-fashioned way. It's like I don't have to say what discourse or what the triggering topic was, but a lot of discourse was shut down over the past few years on some things that were very, very important. And we see some of the very negative things that have come from that. I won't not go into that. We'll stay on topic. I'll stay on topic. I'll make it my I can remember, so I'll try to stay on topic. I think it's key. The first part of what you said, and I don't want to misquote you, but it was something like, if we, and we all say it, if I think I understand what the intention was, right? That is where we've reached a point, I feel, in our country and in this world, where it's now a trust issue. And I think it was a trust issue hundreds of years ago when certain rules were set up that you will not silence the people under any circumstances. Because right now, I think the trust is broken. It's been set on fire and stomped out in the bottom of a big trash bin. And if we lived in a world where the people who were in charge actually held the wants and the needs, or I should say the same priorities as the people, say a crazy thing called a representative government. If we had that, then I would say to those people who hold the same values and priorities as the people. Now, everyone doesn't have to agree. That's not how that works.
Right.
But the vast majority of the people say, look, we don't want X. So the people who decide what should be said, like, something where everybody could have common ground, like you should not have overt, horrible violence against children. You shouldn't have a channel for that. There's no place for that in our lives. We should empower them to enforce that and say, none of that. But the trust is gone. So it's kind of like we don't want to give them any. If they say that we want to protect these two white men or white homosexual men, and we say that there's going to be a different reaction for each, well, there's reasons for that are real, and we don't want them deciding anything. We don't want our government to decide which one of those groups can say whatever they want to say. As a person who sits
right
where I sit and some action is taking place miles and miles away from me, and I don't know what's going on, and then I say, I hear one version of what happened. I want to hear the other version of what happened also. So
that was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it though.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger tests that I think we failed, actually, one of the bigger tests of how true we are to our American principles is when there is unpopular speech. In recent memory, Donald Trump championed some things that were wildly popular with one segment of the society, and then wildly unpopular with another. And I thought the decision to attempt to censor him was sad. That was absolutely the wrong reaction to take. When I was active duty, and talking to refugees from Iraq or Afghanistan, it never surprised me that there was some heretic from their part of the world railing against the United States and talking about death to America. That part never surprised me. What surprised me was that it resonated. We'll cut that out. Don't worry about it.
Smells great.
Right. What surprised me was that it resonated. What surprised me was that that kind of rhetoric found an audience, and there was no rebuttal to that viewpoint. And I think Donald Trump or anybody else should be free to say whatever they believe they want to say, even if it's malicious, even if he knows he's lying and he's intending on misleading people. That should not take away from his right to speak, because I also have a right to speak, and I can use that right to speak to point out that is a lie, that's false, and give people a choice and trust that society is smart enough to be able to make the choice free of direction and influence and input. And I'm sure they were well intended, but I think actions like that only feed that kind of viewpoint that Donald Trump was championing, that there's a swamp, that there's a hidden agenda that wants to silence you. I just didn't understand that choice and that decision. And you and I have this channel. If we say something, or if I say something that is someone disagrees with, well, then let me know that you disagree with, but don't take away my ability to speak. That just, and it seems like there's so much, which is why I wanted to talk about this. It seems like there is so much momentum now. We're like less democratic. Everybody has to talk the same. Everybody has to think the same. Everybody has to see things the same way. And if you don't, you are a xenophobe or a racist, or you're assigned some vicious label just because you have an opinion. That doesn't seem very American to me, and it really, really concerns me to see that we seem to be moving in that direction.
I agree 100% with that. The momentum, I believe, and this is, again, back to why I hold the position at this point that we cannot allow the government to, or the government through non-governmental organizations or any other means, deputizing private organizations, we cannot allow them to censor anyone at this point, because they've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that not only is it negative for the people, but that their intentions are not always what it seems. And it goes back to the whole good intentions idea. It's a great way, if you think about it. If there are two sides in a room that you're talking to and you know that they don't agree with each other at all, they are emotionally disagreeing with each other, even, which that's impossible.
Right.
You can't just throw a fact out there and they go, oh, they both say, hey, we should hug. No. If you have those two groups, but you want them both to do what you want them to do, or to say yes to something they would never say yes to rationally, then you have to appeal to them emotionally. You say to, I'll use the group names at random because everyone can identify which groups I'm talking about. You take Black Lives Matter. Again, no discussion of who they are, where they started, just what they stand for on their surface. Okay. And you tell them, we should quiet that Donald Trump guy down. We should shut him down at every level. And these corporations should help us do it. They should stand by us because it's the right thing to do. Well, then the Black Lives Matter people are extremely happy. Hey, we've got a little victory. We've won. This is fantastic. But now, to use a very overly used phrase, quote, Pandora's box is now open, because what's going to happen next is there's going to be an issue that the Black Lives Matter movement is talking about. And all of the right wingers, or all of how do we say it? What's a good group? Okay, I'll just throw the first thing that came to my mind. All the Proud Boys will totally disagree with what the Black Lives Matter group just said. And now they can lobby to have Black Lives Matter shut down. Use the corporations to do it. Now both camps can say victory for free speech. And how ironic. Because now both of them no longer have free speech. None of them now, neither of them now can say much of anything, because now the arbiter is the controller of speech, because you've given them permission to do it.
Right.
When you were angry at the other person's view, you thought it was okay for someone to gag them. But then when that gag comes back to you, it doesn't feel so good. And I think a lot of that's been a lot of the momentum building. They played groups against each other, and no, I'm not going to go into who the they is. I'll just say that what's happening seems obvious. It seems that there's an effort to put it bluntly, to slowly and steadily erode our ability to speak for ourselves.
Yeah, it's highly ironic to me that we live in a society that purports to champion free speech and free ideals and individualism, but in the very same breath, there are segments of our society that want to program you. This is what an American looks like. This is what an American thinks. This is what an American says. This is how an American feels. And that sounds like North Korea to me, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like communist China to me. And this is not recent. I remember the very first time I got an inkling of this kind of feeling was with Trent Lott. Trent Lott was the Senate Majority Leader in the late 90s. And now this is pre-internet, okay? He was attending the birthday party of Strom Thurmond. And Strom Thurmond, at this point, 96 years old, lifelong segregationist, who at this point was just on the wrong side of history. And at this birthday party, Trent Lott is struggling to find something nice to say to this dying old man at his 96th birthday party. So he has some platitudes and some nice things, and you were a great leader, and he said something to the effect of, it's a shame that we don't have you speaking for us anymore, or something along those lines. And a recording of that was made, and a recording of that was released. Now, this was not something he said on the Senate floor. This was not a policy position that he was calling for. He was at an old man's birthday party, trying to find something nice to say to this old person who, as it turned out, held a wrong position for decades. And that recording was used to strip this man of his position, mm-hmm. under the guise that he was a racist. Now, whether or not he personally believed in Strom Thurmond was never asked. I don't know if that's the case. But even if it was, why isn't he allowed his right to that thought? Why is he not allowed that? He's not proposing it as a matter of policy. He's not calling for, he hasn't his voting record didn't reflect that he was a segregationist. That's what he thought personally. Whether it was platitude or not, why wasn't he allowed his thought? And I have seen examples like that played out over and over and over again. And the left, I hate to say, the left, in the name of progress and in the name of progression, has time and time again, instead of coming up with a better argument against something, the solution has been assign a dirty label and silence my dissenter. And I really think that, as opposed to the right, where the right, until recently, like woke is a dirty label now. But I think they've kind of learned from the left, and okay, we can call you guys names too. But when the Christian right wanted to recapture after the wildness of the 60s and the 70s, and Ronald Reagan championed the religious right, but he did not do that by demonizing so much as by talking about what the greatness of America should be. And his brand of conservatism lasted 2 generations, right? When after Monica, this is what propelled GW, because after the Monica Lewinsky thing, the idea that principled conservative leadership matters, is what propelled, it's what destroyed Al Gore in the 2000 election. And as opposed to the left, if you look over that same period of time, if you opposed gay marriage, you did not oppose gay marriage because you were religiously fervent. You opposed gay marriage because you were homophobic, right? If you opposed reparations, right, because you believed in individualism as opposed to identity politics, well, no, that's not the reason why. The reason why is because you're a racist, right? If you opposed gender equality, it's not because you rejected, you were allowed to reject it on its face. Clearly, it's because you hate women, and so time and time again, it was this label assignment and an attempt to silence, as opposed to come up with a better argument. And I as I've seen that over the decades, I just really think that you should be able to say what you think. You should be able to think what you think without fear of that kind of retribution and ostracization.
I look at well, the first thing I say is I've always been stunned by how the word progressive has been used, and even the word progress, but no one has ever asked the question, what are we progressing toward? But that's a different story altogether. That is a great question. It's such an great question. Empty word, the way that they use it. We're progressives. Yeah, but that's not, sometimes you need to stand still before you go forward because you don't know where you're headed. There's a cliff. But I digress. Okay. Because I think we're on that cliff with many, many things we're doing in society where we're calling it progress. When it comes to Strom Thurmond, and his views on, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, Trent Lott and his views on Strom Thurmond. Trent Lott. We teach our children something that is extremely valuable. And we teach them that when it comes to going out into the world when it comes to relating and talking, communicating to other people. Don't say something you don't mean is something that we should teach our children. Be aware that you're going to have to be responsible for what you say, and think about it very clearly before you say it. I'm a big fan of the trinity of event, and it's thoughts, speech, and actions. I believe that they are so completely one thing that they're inseparable. If you think it, you're going to speak it. And if you speak it, you're going to do it. You're going to behave that way. When you have a constituency whom you tell that you do not believe in certain ideas, principles, thoughts, I'm running for governor of all people who only turn left. Okay.
Right.
And then I'm on video talking to my best friend at the bar about how much, man, you know what? Really? I just admire those people who turn right. And that video comes out. I have not been responsible for my speech. Even if I didn't know I was being recorded, that almost makes it worse. Because why is it that my private conversation, I'm professing my admiration for the opposite group, to the one that I claim to represent. And I believe that those people, and it comes right back to censorship. I believe that those people have a right to know that I said that if I said it. I believe I owe them an explanation for why I said it and under the conditions I said it. And they have the right to say, do we forgive that or not?
Okay.
We've had so much experience in our country of politicians saying one thing and doing another. And it doesn't matter what party it is. It doesn't matter at all. And so anytime, you've got to know if that's your job, you're in politics. You've got to know you better keep what you say consistent with what you think. You better be responsible. And the easiest way to do that is, don't lie. Because that's what scares people is when your private speech is different than your public speech.
Yeah, but that's why it's private speech. But that's why it's private speech, right? So I am, in my professional life, right? I am responsible for developing other people, right? That's one of my responsibilities. Now, privately, I may have zero ability or zero confidence in someone's ability to do something that they themselves want to do. Right? That's my thought. But professionally, I'm going to support that person just like I would support everybody else because that's my job. That's my job. Right? If your goal is to become you're an hourly person and your stated goal is to become a member of management. And that's where you want to go. And I personally may not have confidence in your ability to do it based upon what I've seen, but I'm going to support you professionally because that's my job. That's my job to do, whether I personally think that you can do it or not. I think what you're asking for is the other way around. For me to say that I have a confidence and ability in this person, that would be the lie. That's not true. I don't have confidence and ability personally. That's not what I think personally, but professionally, yes. If this is what you want to do, let's sit down. I'll mentor you. We'll put a plan together and I'll work with you for as long as you want this to be your goal because that's my job. And I will do that. And I don't think that I should have to pretend to I don't think I should have to pretend to see this person a different way because it's not polite.
I think that's not exactly the same, though. I think that is not exactly the same. It's what you're doing is there's a person that's a candidate for something. They want to move up. They want to better themselves. They want to, and whether you believe that they have the ability or not, yeah, you have to keep the door open for them and try and, give them the opportunity to prove you wrong, right? That's what that is. That's what that job entails. However, as citizens of the United States, we hire them for their job, and their job is to represent us. So what happens in corporate America? What happens in the workplace when the employer realizes that there is a lack of information, maybe a lack of knowledge? For some reason, that person might not be able to perform that job. And it's really, evident. Well, and I'm trying to bring it to where it's a more similar comparison, because we hire representatives and senators based on them earnestly believing in what we believe, we align with.
I don't do that. I'm not interested in their personal beliefs.
Well, no,
I'm interested.
What I'm saying is you can't separate that, because if I tell you I hate beets, not drinking, okay. Beets on a plate, right?
Right.
I hate beets,
right?
And I tell you that privately, but I run on a platform of I love beets. And so all the beet people out there believe that I love beets. And someone could say, yeah, but you would be, you still, when you're out there, you're doing a great job representing the beet people. You do. You don't even falter. You do a great job. But what our politicians do is not that. That's not what they do. And that's not what Trent Lott did. And when you hear something that says, okay, now, and it doesn't matter which side hears it, whether it's the beat people or the other people who catch the fact that you said, I hate beats. Okay. They're disgusting. Privately, I really don't like them. Those people then have a reason to say that, every conversation and every deal and every compromise and every situation that happens in Congress and Senate is not public. Many of these things are in private conversations, and and I don't want anyone who would say in private that, look, I really am, or in this case, in the case of Lott and Thurman, I really do like this guy and we need more people like him. Wait a minute, because if I voted for you based on principles that had that were the opposite of what the person you're saying you admire stood for, then you owe us an explanation, in the least.
Man, wow.
Otherwise, how can you represent us? I cannot. As a boss, you're not a representative. As a manager, you're not a representative of that person.
So as a representative, as a representative, but I am a representative, right? Because in my role, right, I am the link between the hourly associate and senior manager.
But you're Trent Lott.
So
you're not the hourly associate.
Right. No, exactly. I'm Trent Lott. Okay. So if let's pick another subject. So if a representative of Congress, okay, hates corn, okay, they've never liked corn. Corn is disgusting from them, but they're from Iowa. It's in their best interest to represent the interests of corn, because that's the people that he represents. Whether he personally likes corn is irrelevant.
can he professionally represent the interest of who he's there to represent? And I think that's my point. Trent Lott's personal distaste or likeness of black people is irrelevant. Has absolutely nothing to do with his ability to support policy.
I agree.
He doesn't have to himself be a integrationist in order to perform effectively to support those efforts. He should be allowed to have his own personal feelings.
Agreed.
That's my point. This idea, this notion, and something that you said that I do agree with. If you don't love corn, don't say you love corn. Don't say that, because that's not true, right? Say that say what is true, right? I'm from the state of Iowa, and I know how important corn is to my state, and I'm going to fight to protect corn and promote corn as vigorously as I can if you elect me to office. But if there's a video clip of me in a restaurant telling a waiter, please do not serve me corn, I can't stand it, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm disingenuous and my integrity needs to be called into question now because I have a personal opinion about something. Mm-hmm. And that's what part of why I think we see politicians. Hillary Clinton was in South Carolina in 2016 and pulled a bottle of hot sauce out of her purse.
That was an event.
It was so egregious. That woman I don't carry around hot sauce.
Is that pandering?
Like that.
Is that what they call it?
I don't do that. But her team felt like it was necessary for her to demonstrate this sense of camaraderie with this particular demographic. And that is more disingenuous to me.
Based on stereotyping.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely terrible. But it's because people want to, if you want your politicians to hold this standard, I just don't think that's fair. I don't care whether or not Trent Lott loved Strom Thurmond's policies or not. I don't care about that. I care about what did he do professionally, because that's what he was hired to do. I'm not hiring him to be a true believer in civil rights. I'm hiring him to support civil rights legally. And did he do that? And that's the only thing that should matter. This is the same argument I made for Bill Clinton. It's the same argument I made for the George W. Bush. If whatever their personal feelings are, I don't think should be used. I mean, because how hard would it be? Could you do your job? Yeah, I hit my table. I got too animated. Could you do your job effectively if you had to 100% have a personal belief and connection in everything that you're asked to do? Could you do that? Are there times where you don't personally agree with it, but you know what? I'm going to toe the company line. This is what I need to do, and when we're going to do it.
I think it comes back to the question that you asked with a twist. It's, could you do your job to the absolute best of your ability every time without fail?
Okay.
If you did not believe in anything that your job stood for and its goals were.
Right.
I think that we understand enough about human beings and how they operate to know that if you are anti what you say you stand, what you're going to help me do, you might not perform to the best of your ability, and it might even be subconscious.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
that's fair.
I say, I'll take it to the one really big representative, the penultimate representative in a democracy, your lawyer. You know,
Right.
that is the
Yes.
ultimate representative.
Yes.
Like your butt is on the line and you want them to find you want to search every nook and cranny of the law and precedent and to represent you and get you out of that mess. Now, there is a right that every citizen of this country has. That if they do not feel that their lawyer, for some reason, is representing them appropriately, or if they feel that they have a conflict of interest, or if they feel that it shouldn't even necessarily, sometimes it's not even the person themselves, it will be the judge who will say, no. But the person has the right to say, well, you know, you are an award-winning lawyer and you fought for the rights of people and you've done this for 20 years. But what I just realized is that you fought for the people that I do not agree with, and you fought for the side that I'm asking you to represent me against. It's not exactly the same thing as what we're saying with Trent Lott and Strom Thurmond, but it's the same right. It's saying, if you represent me, I have the right to say, I don't want you to represent me anymore because I believe you will not be able to, you have conflict of interest. If you truly believe what you said, then you have a personal conflict of interest. And I could even go any further and say, out of respect for you.
That's fair.
Out of respect for you.
That's fair.
I don't want you to represent me in this because you're going to have to go against your own personal beliefs every day. And I don't think that's good for you. And I don't think it's going to serve our purpose as best as it could in the long run. Now, I do see what you're saying because this is misused. So let me say that. I'll say that right now.
Yeah.
It's so misused. It's kind of like, oh my, let's switch from politics to football for this one.
Sure.
So my favorite former coach who I did not like personally at all, no one that I ever knew that met him said he was a good person. They all said he was kind of a jerk. And it was the guy who used to coach at okay, that's all I'll say, right? And he did some things in his private time that made people just go, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Like you're married, first of all. Like you're really
right.
Okay. Now, does that mean that he cannot get the absolute best out of his players? That he is not a magnificent coach? That he is not performing what I asked him to represent? You know, what I said I wanted was the best coach possible. Should he lose his job should a sport coach lose their job for infidelity? No, I don't think so. I'm with Charles Barkley on that. Like, I'm not a role model. You know? Right. You know, that gentleman, I don't hope I haven't said his name, but he's not a role model. Right. He's a coach. And he's a human being and he makes mistakes. But over here on what he does best, did he make a mistake with that? No. Does he have track records with really making mistakes with that? No. So anything in that career should be able to keep going. As long as his failings don't in any way touch what he's been hired to do, what he's been put there for. Now, there are people who will bring the morality into, he's just not a good person, so we don't, well, okay. Show me one.
Yeah, they
tried
that with Donald Trump, right? They tried.
Show me the perfect.
They tried that argument with Donald Trump.
I said to many people, you are hating Donald Trump because, I know he dog whistled the white supremacists and all that. Yes, he did. I mean, everyone. Okay, we can all acknowledge that, but you're going against him against your own best interest in a much bigger, much more current, much more prominent way. Because he's saying, I agree, you should get something. And a lot of people didn't want to get something. And he said, if you don't want that something, you shouldn't have to. You're responsible for yourself. You don't, whatever happens, here's what I think. but you shouldn't have to. Again, it should be based on what that person or entity is representing you about. If you look at everything else in their lives, you're always going to be able to find something you don't agree with, and that's not cause for dismissing them from their position. But if the minute they're not representing what you need, the minute that their effect could, based on their beliefs, could be negative toward you, you have a right to say, I don't know if I want this person representing me anymore. And I just take it all the way back to your lawyer. Like,
yeah. And this cancel culture, right, is part and parcel to the argument that you're making. On its face, you're absolutely right. I think it's a fair critique to say, like, if this is not something that you really believe, are you the best person to champion us? And you don't really believe it. Like, so I think that's a fair argument. But the things that have been used to call into question someone's belief has really gotten out of hand.
It's
right?
not always.
I mean,
not always right.
To find some obscure statement from 16 years ago that was, somebody stuck a microphone under a bathroom stall and recorded you making some crazy statement. And you have that isolated statement, and there's nothing in your history to suggest that is your position over the last 16 years. And now this statement resurfaces after 16 years, and all of a sudden, you are now painted with this broad brush based on the confines of that statement. To me, is absolutely ridiculous. And I understand why some younger people may feel that way, because they haven't lived long enough to say something stupid and then live to grow beyond that statement. Yeah. So, I can appreciate that, but anybody who's, maybe 45 or older, please don't hold me to anything that I might have said in 97. Please.
Facts. I said a few things that I just absolutely do not agree with anymore that long ago.
No, yeah. I mean, so, yeah. I guess, bringing it back around to free speech, if we want to live in a society where you are free to speak, then that means that we have to protect someone's right to be unpopular, to be callous, even, right? One of my favorite people is Jordan Peterson, and one of my favorite quotes from him is, "In order to be able to think, you have to be willing to risk being offensive." Right? If you're going to agree with what's already there, right, you don't need to think,
right?
Because it's already been decided. And if you're going to have an original thought, you run the risk of running counter to the status quo. And I think that needs to be protected. It really, really does. And so a man in Missouri, who I don't want to bake a cake for a gay wedding, because that causes me strife personally. And I understand why that's unpopular. And I agree with the ultimate Supreme Court decision that if you're going to be public facing, you don't have the right to pick and choose who you're going to serve out of the public. Right. But on an individual level, I understand, or I agree with his right to express that feeling. That's what he thought. And it doesn't mean that he hates all gay people. It doesn't mean any of that.
Agreed.
All that means is that I don't feel comfortable with this because of what I believe. And if we don't protect that, we're gonna run the risk of turning into this monolith where we're all dressing the same and looking the same and talking the same and thinking the same and acting the same. And I don't think that would be American at all.
Yeah, we're all going to lose if we allow things to get to that point. And there's options to use. That's a great example because I think a lot of people are thinking in terms of, look, I don't want to do anything that really goes completely against my personal morals and integrity. But at the same time, I make these cakes. I have a bakery and I serve the public. So that's my livelihood. And you reach a crossroads at that point. But I think the answer is already available. And it's one that has been used for, a century. I'm no longer a public baker.
There you go.
You come into my shop, you fill out an application, and then, whatever. And the application can be, what's your name? And tell me a little bit about yourself.
Right.
And in that thing, you ask directly, do you support? You ask it, you're not belligerent. Ideally, you don't cause a mess just with the question itself. But you find out what you need to find out and you become a private person of that. Right. And in many cases in history, your business might even explode when you become that because now you represent to a lot of people what they represent and like to put forward in a way. You know what? I wasn't going to eat cake today, but I might go some some cupcakes or something. Or whatever. So, there's options and that's a good part of America. And a lot of times that's been crapped on. It's been used as, an argument that racism is rampant, but it's one of those chicken or the egg things. Like if I have a private club and I'm allowed to admit whoever I want into that club, right? That's my right.
So that's not racism to me. That's not racism.
Then that is what the club is. It does not mean that the person who runs it is racist. Like if I started a club and I said, look, this is a book reading club and it is for black males between 18 and 30 years old only. And a white person wanted to get into the club and I said, look, sir, I'm sorry. I'll give you the list of all the books that we read, but you can't become a member of the club because it's for 18 to 30-year-old black men. It's like, no one should be able to assume that I hate white people because I started that group.
Right.
And that should not. It will in this society. But that's fine because they have free speech too. And I have the ability to deny it. And then it comes to censorship. Right back to what we're talking about. Because if I am censored in my ability to respond to that. Oh boy.
Exactly.
Oh boy. Because that's the thing. It's like, you shouldn't be able to say that you don't like, controversy. There's one of the more controversial topics going on in America. You shouldn't be able to say that you agree with the people who oppose it. Oh my gosh. We don't want to hear that that's hate speech. It's this. It's giving the names you were talking about.
Right.
There's no justification for why that name even applies, but it's just like homophobia. Many have never understood that yet because there's no fear. But anyway.
Fear. Right. Right.
You cannot take away my ability to respond to it, but you also can't take away the ability of someone to make a YouTube channel or whatever channel and say, I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy, Brian, because, he has this club and he won't let, 18 to 30-year-old white guys in. And I think that's racist, dog.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
I would not want that person censored at all. But I would also want to be able to put my video up that is answering to that. Right. And then, like you said earlier, I do believe, and this is big for me, it's one of the reasons that they use to push censorship on us is they really have this underlying thing that they're not quite catching, but it's there. There's this underlying assumption that we are stupid. That people are too dumb.
Got too animated.
Right, exactly.
I did it again.
There's this underlying, idea that the people are not smart enough to make their own decisions. I had someone very near and dear to me chide me for sharing my views on some controversial topics. It was just one side. It was not the side of big social media corporations. I'll put it that way. And this person chided me deeply, made it seem like I was going to be the cause of some horrible things to people that I love and care about. And my reply was, I give them more credit than that. I know that they hear the opposition to my opinion every day. They see it, hear it, they're immersed in it. They are drowning in the pseudo data that says that they should go one way. How am I going to destroy their lives or cause them harm by just giving them 5 sentences that say maybe you should consider another way of looking at it?
This, and this is a conversation for another day, but this is the danger of the algorithm-driven echo chamber that we find ourselves in, right? Because when you hear nothing but the same sentiment again and again and again, it is very easy to assume that that is the position, right? It's very easy to assume that. And then it becomes, well, how can anybody else think anything different when all you hear is one viewpoint? And no, I agree with you totally. It's that ability to have your voice and to enter into public discourse as well that keeps us from being this tyrannical society and having all thought and influence funneled into a certain narrative. If you can believe it, man, it has been an hour. This has been a really, 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 really good discussion.
Yep, I think so. We've talked about.
So if you had to,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you had to sum it up, man, where do you find yourself with this idea of, you know, censorship and versus First Amendment?
I think that it is an extremely dangerous idea to allow people to silence anyone else, others. I think that it is completely, it's something that we already understand through generation after generation of experience. If you're a fan of history, that when people are silenced, when they are not allowed to give their viewpoint, when one side is allowed free reign and dissenting voices, I think is what they're called, conscientious objectors, when they are denied speech, it doesn't take a history PhD to see how many negative things happen when that occurs.
Yeah, I agree. While I appreciate the intent to want to protect vulnerable groups, while I appreciate that, I would be in favor of empowering the vulnerable group to amplify their voice, as opposed to attempting to silence the group that is opposing them. And I like you said earlier, I think that's a very, very dangerous, slippery slope. And that cliff may be a lot closer than any of us realize if we're not careful. So, but yeah, I think that's a good note, man. Great content today. Thank you so much. And look forward to doing this again next week. If you are listening to this podcast and you are interested in joining the conversation, we would love to have you. And I don't mean through messages. We want to speak to you live directly and have you be an actual part of the conversation. So please reach out to us at the Fourth Branch Podcast, Fourth Branch Podcast, gmail.com, or you can also find us on Facebook. Look forward to hearing from you soon. You got anything else, man, for the people?
Nope. I would just say to people, keep thinking for yourself. Don't be afraid to think for yourself. Absolutely. Get information and make up your own mind.
All right. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.